Hey friends. I had another great day today, and it was largely animated by time with my daughter. I had a couple of work sessions this morning, and it was actually really nice. There was one of my students that just I I swear every time we meet, something we truly meet. Every time we meet, we truly meet. And man, there's just nothing like that. It's such a blessing to work with someone where it really feels like what I have to give is both received, it's what's needed, and and even beyond that, there's a kind of camaraderie in life, a sort of spiritual camaraderie that just feels like we see the world in a similar way, a similar enough way that by and large the lessons we've each learned are we're able to share them, we're able to resonate with each other's experiences, and there may be there may be different levels of expertise depending on what domain of life we're talking about or engaging with. Some the sort of the role of the expert might shift back and forth some. But man, is that ever my favorite kind of interaction. What could be better than that almost? It's like just such a wonderful experience. And I share that because it it sort of illustrates and encapsulates for me what what feeling on purpose really feels like for me. That those interactions, those lessons, sometimes it's collaborations, but those experiences are they're just gold. And and I really have just I've really enjoyed them. And uh, and coming out of a couple of meetings this morning, and I've had a series now of meetings about a completely different topic where it's like there's some almost surreal connection. Like this morning, I met a woman I'd never met before, met her on Zoom, and it turns out we both have worked with the same person writing songs, or I think she runs a program for other people to write songs. I was one of the songwriters in the program. Between Santa Fe, New Mexico, and a tiny town in northern Michigan, there's a connection, and the same person is working on these projects. Like it's the same project. The same project I did 4 years ago in Santa Fe is now happening up in northern Michigan, and it's the same person running it. I was like, you got to be kidding me! This is insane. This is like, how do these connections just pop up like this? And I rolled out of that into this lesson I was just talking about, and I then I was on duty with my daughter, and we started our musical practice, and I had one of those moments at the beginning of it. It's really interesting. I'm learning. I did my post yesterday on first it has got to be play, and what I realized a few, what has crystallized for me as a concept in terms of music teaching was that that my job is to create a container. I put a container around the work of learning music. That's my main job. Within that, there are other jobs, and there are sub containers that need to fit into this larger container. And I actually, I forgot one other thing that I did today, which was I attended a conference, or I attended a presentation at a Suzuki conference on working with your kids on music, on how to be a supportive Suzuki parent or caregiver. And I got a couple of really cool ideas from it. Some of which, a lot of it was stuff that I had heard before. I've done enough research now that some of this stuff is like, okay, yes, we've been over this territory, but then there's always something, always a new insight or two that showed up. And today, one of them was that parent-teacher conferences. It's so funny because the woman was suggesting that every once in a while the parent do a parent-teacher conference with the teacher. And she was sort of suggesting it from the teacher's point of view, like the teachers should install these parent-teacher conferences. And I realized that's literally exactly what I just did. I literally just spent a lesson talking to the teacher, talking to my daughter's teacher about the practice process, about my role, about how it's going, all this stuff. And it was like the most clarifying experience. It really just built in this element of consciousness of the process and collaboration on the process with the teacher, and really shifted some things. And so I rolled from that. That's actually the last thing I did before I rolled into my afternoon when my daughter freed up and we got to do some music. And there was this moment at the beginning where she was like, no. There was this initial resistance, which I get frequently. A lot of times getting started, the hardest part. And I got that activated moment that I spoke about a few days ago where it was like, okay, I get this feeling in my heart, like this agitation, this irritation, which I've learned, I pointed out the other day, that inner irritation that I get ostensibly with her sounds a lot like the way I talk to myself. It sounds a lot like my own kind of self-judgment and the frustrated anger that I direct at myself pretty frequently. And that when I had this insight a week or two ago, I was like, ooh, okay, so let's see if I can just hold that and not allow that to ripple out into the process, and certainly not allow it to be something that I direct at her, that comes out into the space at my daughter, because then she's gonna, basically that would mean that I'm bequeathing that problem to her rather than dealing with it and eating my own karma, as I called it, digesting my own karma, processing it, excreting it. I would be handing it to her, be like, here, I couldn't deal with this problem, you deal with it. That's kind of what it would be if I didn't process this and sort of like become conscious of it. So I observed that happening today, and it was a much milder dose. And then I thought, well, literally the title of my post yesterday was First It Has Got to Be Play. So I started being playful. I brought out the character, the strict taskmaster teacher, who, by the way, is now becoming requested at bedtime. It's being requested that Papa say goodnight to my daughter, and also teacher. So she's becoming a real thing. I said my first goodnight as Tatiana Romanovskaya-Govovich today. But anyway, during the practice session, I just kind of I sort of started from a place of, we're just going to have some fun. We're just going to be silly. We're going to just have some fun. And sure enough, mood shift, we started, boom, we're into the work. Did a nice long practice session. We ended up in the studio recording one of her violin pieces. She got really excited about it. And she actually even, I had a feeling, this is where I'm learning things too, because we did a recording, but one of the recordings was so, she was doing a piece that was difficult for her, and she made a mistake in the middle of it, and she was really upset about it. I tried to explain, hey, look, we're in a studio. We can do this over and over as many times as you want. But she got really upset. And so that also teaches me something about how to dose this, how much can she really handle? Because I think maybe what happened was my enthusiasm kind of got the better of me. She was having a blast, but I wasn't reading, okay, we're getting to that place where it's gonna be hard to, it's the focus is gonna fade. So there's a little lesson in that for me. But we came back from that too. Once the dog was licking her face, she was all good to go again. And but what I didn't even rediscover it. I just sort of reaffirmed it. Was this idea that play, man, play is where it's at. It's got to start with play. And if I can do that really consistently, if I can, now my challenge is to remember that and to stay there, to stay in that place of play, not to have a couple of successes from the place of play and then go back to working, which very well may happen just given my personality. But my challenge to myself is never to leave that space of play. Stay in that space of play. Keep it about play. Keep it about play. And see what that produces. See if that doesn't produce something categorically different and very likely orders of magnitude more enjoyable and more profound than working, coming to the work, doing the work, which I don't know that that's what I actually feel like, but that's, I think, what it comes across as. Yeah, that's it. That it's hard, it's brittle, and it's just non-negotiable. This is the look. I'm making a short film about a father and a daughter and the relationship over the piano. In this case, this is a good place to remember. To remember this, because this is what I think it looks like to her when I get to that place. So anyway, keep it about play. That's my big takeaway for the day. When all else fails, bring the puppy into the room. Thanks for watching. I appreciate you. Have a wonderful day. I'll see you soon.